At 79, Phil Hickerson is finally opening up about the 5 players he truly cannot stand. You are probably wondering who they are and what they did to make him this upset. So let us jump into today's video and uncover the real stories behind all that anger. 1. Jerry Lawler. Phil Hickerson's rivalry with Jerry Lawler went deep, and it left scars that never fully healed. Their battles over the main titles in the territory were intense, and fans loved every minute of it. But behind the scenes, Hickerson's feelings were far from friendly. Lawler was talented, there was no doubt about that, but Hickerson felt that Lawler often used his influence to manipulate situations in ways that hurt him personally. Every time they faced off, Hickerson felt like he was constantly being tested, not just in the ring, but by the politics surrounding it. One of the moments that cut the deepest for Hickerson was when Lawler exposed his PY Chu High gimmick. What was supposed to be a creative character, something Hickerson had put effort and energy into, was turned into a source of embarrassment. Lawler knew how to push buttons and knew exactly how far he could go to humiliate someone without crossing a line in front of fans. Hickerson never forgot that feeling of being undermined in a way that was calculated. It made him feel small in a world where he had worked tirelessly to earn respect and credibility. Hickerson also resented the way Lawler treated others around him during those years. He felt that Lawler protected his own image at all costs, even if it meant stepping on people who were supposed to be allies or partners. The backstage atmosphere often made Hickerson feel like he could not trust what was happening behind the scenes. Every match, every storyline, there was this lingering sense that Lawler had the upper hand, not because of talent alone, but because he knew how to manipulate outcomes to favor himself. That sense of unfairness and lack of loyalty only deepened Hickerson's anger. Even years later, Hickerson could not forget the combination of professional setbacks and personal slight he experienced because of Lawler. Their rivalry was exciting for fans, but for Hickerson, it was a constant reminder that some people would use their position to advance at the expense of others. That mix of embarrassment, frustration, and feeling betrayed turned into long-lasting resentment. Phil Hickerson's hatred for Jerry Lawler was not about a single incident, but a collection of moments where he felt manipulated, humiliated, and undervalued. That is why, to this day, Jerry Lawler remains at the top of the list of people Hickerson could never forgive. Barrett 2. Submerged Condrey. Phil Hickerson's relationship with Dennis Condrey was complicated. On one hand, they had years of success together as a tag team, creating matches that fans still remember fondly. But on the other hand, their partnership was far from smooth, and over time, Hickerson developed a strong dislike for Dennis. The tension started during periods when they were supposed to be working together, but disagreements began to surface. Hickerson felt that Dennis often put his own interests above the team's success, and that sense of selfishness created a rift that never fully healed. One of the biggest sources of resentment for Hickerson was the way Dennis sometimes approached feuds between them. What should have been a storyline built on respect and cooperation became personal at times. Dennis had a habit of taking liberties in the ring, doing things that made Hickerson look bad or risked the match entirely. Hickerson was someone who took pride in his craft and worked hard to ensure every moment looked clean and exciting. He found it frustrating when Dennis's actions seemed careless, as if the focus was more on Dennis standing out than on the team performing well together. Hickerson also believed that Dennis could be manipulative outside the ring. Backstage, Hickerson often felt that Dennis tried to influence promoters and bookers to favor himself. Hickerson thought that decisions were sometimes being made not on merit or talent, but based on who Dennis liked or what would boost his position. This created a constant sense of uncertainty and made it difficult for Hickerson to trust him completely. The frustration grew because Hickerson knew he had contributed equally, if not more, to their team's reputation and success. Yet he felt overlooked whenever Dennis pushed for his own recognition. Another factor was the lack of honesty. Hickerson valued open communication and mutual respect, but he felt Dennis would avoid addressing issues directly, letting small disagreements fester into larger problems. The tension became so noticeable that even when they shared the ring, there was an invisible wall between them. Fans could see the chemistry, but Hickerson knew the trust had been broken long ago. Looking back, Phil Hickerson's hatred for Dennis Condrey was rooted in a mix of professional frustration and personal disappointment. Dennis's self-centered decisions, risky behavior in matches, and behind-the-scenes influence left Hickerson feeling undervalued and manipulated. Even after their feuds and reconciliations ended, those feelings remained, cementing Dennis Condrey as someone Hickerson could never truly forgive. 3. Experimented Jackie Fargo. Phil Hickerson's career was full of battles against some of the biggest names in wrestling, and few were as frustrating for him as Jackie Fargo. Fargo was a major veteran and a beloved babyface in the territory. Fans adored him, and his reputation made him almost untouchable. Hickerson respected talent, but he could not stand how Fargo seemed to get every opportunity handed to him without struggle. Every time Hickerson tried to challenge him, especially in tag team title matches, it felt like he was climbing a mountain with one hand tied behind his back. One of the things that bothered Hickerson most was the way Fargo's popularity seemed to influence the way matches were booked. It was clear that promoters trusted Fargo to draw the crowd and protect the audience's favorite. Hickerson understood that part of the business, but he felt it came at his expense. Whenever he stepped into the ring to challenge Fargo, he often ended up being used to make Fargo look stronger. Hickerson gave everything in those matches, bringing energy, skill, and storytelling, yet he felt invisible compared to the spotlight shining on Fargo. That imbalance frustrated him deeply. Hickerson also grew frustrated with what he saw as Fargo's unwillingness to adapt or share the ring fully. He believed that a true competitor should lift the opponent as much as themselves. Instead, Hickerson felt that Fargo focused almost entirely on protecting his own image and keeping his place at the top. Hickerson wanted matches that challenged both men and created excitement for the fans. But he often felt stifled because Fargo prioritized his legacy over the performance. That made Hickerson feel that his effort and talent were undervalued. Another reason for Hickerson's dislike was the subtle arrogance he sensed from Fargo. Even in casual interactions backstage, Hickerson felt that Fargo treated him like someone who existed to serve the veteran's reputation rather than as an equal competitor. Hickerson prided himself on hard work and fairness, and this type of behavior clashed with everything he believed wrestling should represent. It left him with a lingering resentment that never went away. 4. Terry Taylor. Phil Hickerson's rivalry with Terry Taylor was one of the most heated periods of his career, and it left a lasting impact on how he viewed the younger wrestler. In the mid-80s, they faced each other in singles matches over the AWA International Heavyweight Championship, and while fans saw a thrilling competition, Hickerson felt a constant tension that went beyond the ring. What started as a professional rivalry quickly grew into personal frustration. Hickerson had years of experience and believed in earning respect through effort and skill. But with Terry Taylor, he felt that those values were not always shared. One of the things that bothered Hickerson was the way Taylor approached the matches. Hickerson prided himself on storytelling and making every moment in the ring meaningful. He believed that a match should showcase both wrestlers' abilities and make the fans care about the outcome. Taylor, in Hickerson's eyes, sometimes focused too much on his own image. He made choices during matches that emphasized his own moves or spots, while leaving Hickerson in a supporting position. Hickerson felt that this self-centered approach undermined their rivalry and devalued the work he put into each bout. Hickerson was also frustrated with Taylor's attitude outside the ring. He felt that Taylor did not always treat the relationship as a partnership in competition. Backstage, Hickerson believed Taylor tried to influence promoters in ways that favored himself, even if it meant making Hickerson's role smaller. This created an environment where Hickerson had to work twice as hard to get fair opportunities, which left him feeling frustrated and disrespected. Hickerson valued fairness and honesty, and he thought that Taylor's behavior ignored those principles. Another source of resentment was the sense that Taylor did not appreciate Hickerson's experience. Hickerson had been through countless feuds, tag teams, and title matches. He believed he had insights that could make their rivalry stronger, but he felt Taylor dismissed suggestions and acted as if he already knew best. Hickerson found this attitude arrogant, and it made him feel that the feud was more about boosting Taylor's status than creating a genuine, memorable contest. 5. Phil Hickerson's feud with the Freedom Fighters in late 1985 was one of the most intense and frustrating periods of his career. At the time, Jim Hellwig and Steve Borden were a young team trying to make a name for themselves. They were ambitious, talented, and full of energy, but Hickerson came away from the experience feeling betrayed and frustrated. The storyline where they broke his leg was supposed to create excitement for the fans, and in some ways it succeeded. But for Hickerson, it represented a moment where he felt completely disrespected by performers who had not yet earned their place in the business. What hurt Hickerson the most was the sense that the young wrestlers were reckless. In the ring, he felt that their eagerness to stand out sometimes crossed lines that should have been respected. He had spent years learning how to protect himself and his opponents while still putting on a dramatic show. Watching two newer wrestlers ignore that balance left him angry. He believed that wrestling required mutual care and responsibility, and the Freedom Fighters' actions in the storyline made him feel that they cared more about making an impression than about respecting the people they worked with. Hickerson also resented the way management handled the situation. He felt that the young team was being pushed at his expense, and that promoters were more interested in building stars out of Hellwig and Borden than in considering the risks to establish talent. Hickerson understood that new performers needed opportunities, but he believed there was a better way to showcase them without putting someone else's career on the line. That feeling of being used as a stepping stone left a lasting mark. Beyond the in-ring incident, Hickerson felt that neither Jim nor Steve ever showed the kind of appreciation or understanding he expected from fellow wrestlers. He had offered guidance and tried to support them, but he believed they ignored his advice and focused solely on advancing themselves. That arrogance and lack of respect only deepened his anger. He could not forget the way they treated him during that short but significant feud. That brings us to the end of today's video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay up to date with all our content.